It is also his duty to ensure that his wife dresses appropriately and acceptably within the limits of the Sharia, and that she abstains from shameless clothing that is Islamically unacceptable. He must stop her from intermingling with non-mahram men. If this is allowed to happen, the home may plunge into disarray and will be broken after some time. Now obviously, if we are facing a problem like this in our homes, let's understand that to solve it, we must not start screaming and shouting and make 10 problems out of one, as I always say, but rather we should employ methods that will be effective, and we should speak to them in a polite manner. Obviously, at times you need to put your foot down a little bit, but try not to be too harsh, because that might just crack that particular rib, as the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said. The next point is, if one's wife has developed an expensive taste for clothing, for jewelry, etc., and makes it a habit to have something for every single occasion, then the husband must work on this inclination and try to help her, try to keep her away from unnecessary spending and extravagance. Subhanallah, look at this. This is also the duty of the husband, to ensure that the wife doesn't have such an expensive taste and she doesn't become extravagant. The author continues to say, this can result in an element of pressure upon the matrimonial home at some time, which can develop into problems that can even cause the breakup of an otherwise happy home. At times, in order to deal with such a problem, one may find it beneficial to mention related incidents of other people, or the stories of the past, the examples of the pious, and possibly mention of the hereafter. The next point the author mentions, he says, one must live with utmost love and affection with his wife and children. Being overtly harsh or vicious in the home creates a cat and mouse relationship, resulting in hatred and the snatching away of the blessings. This too can lead to the breakup of the home. The next point, in the case of a dispute, whether with one's wife or between one's wife and mother or family members, one should employ the most effective and affectionate methods of resolving such a dispute. Again, in order to do this, one must make sure that his method does not result in further disputes. Disputes should never be allowed to grow, nor should resolving them be delayed. Unresolved family disputes can continue into the next generations. Subhanallah. Let's pause there for a moment. The author says, unresolved family disputes can continue into the next generations. Today you have a little problem. Tomorrow your children will have a problem with the children of your own brother. And so on. The cousins will not get along with each other just because of a small misunderstanding that was not resolved between yourselves. So it is your Islamic duty. You want to ensure that the ummah is in one piece, you make sure that you are in one piece with your family. You make sure that you solve your problems. The author continues to say, unresolved family disputes can continue into the next generations and have a very bad and unfortunate effect on the children's lives with their blood relatives. Solving family problems is regarded as a very great act of worship in Islam. I think we mentioned that yesterday. It is un-Islamic to spread the problems of the home to others. This is because such problems must be resolved and buried within the home. Problems must not be discussed in the presence of young children, for it will be an unnecessary burden on them and will definitely affect them adversely. Today, unfortunately, and I'm actually going to expand on this, today, unfortunately, what happens, we find the mother will actually call her little children, 5 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, and tell them that, what, your daddy is very bad and he's a nasty man and he is not a good person at all, and, this is what he's been doing. So that will develop a hatred for their own father. Imagine. Do you think Allah will be happy with that? Do you think Allah is going to help you in your life? Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to, shower His blessings upon you when you are doing this? And the same applies to the husband. The husband sometimes starts speaking to little children to say, what, your mother is like this and like that. They don't need to know all that. Yes, maybe the day they are married and they have their own lives and now you are old and you want to confide in them, you need a little bit of comfort from them. Maybe then you can raise a point or two. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability. Imagine, take a look at these points. Which religion would teach you all this? Have you ever thought of that? It is Islam, the gift of Islam, that has actually taught us all these issues. The author continues to say, it is incorrect to raise one's voice, shout or scream, scold or admonish one's wife in the presence of others, especially the children. Today, unfortunately, we go into the marketplace and we scream at our wives, at the top of our voices in front of everyone. Do you think for a moment, and this is the question I'm going to ask today, do you think Allah is happy at that? Allah is watching you, and do you think Allah likes that? Do you think you are going to earn the pleasure of Allah? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. The author continues to say, this will result in them disrespecting her. If you are going to shout your children, your wife in front of your children every day, and you are going to swear her, scream at her, obviously the children will do the same. You will find one day you walk into the home, your son will be swearing his own mother. But where did he learn that? He learned it from you, because you've been doing it all day. Now he is doing it as well. So the book says, raising the errors of one's wife in the presence of other family members will make her suffer an inferiority complex, and all this can strain the marriage and lead to a possible and eventual breakup of the home. The next point, it is incorrect to praise other non-mahram women in the presence of one's wife, especially regarding their beauty. Subhanallah. Imagine Islam teaches you this. You are going to praise the beauty of another woman who's not related to you in any way and say, you know what, that woman, she looks so nice, this is what she does, her food is so good, etc., etc. If you are going to do all this, listen to what the author says. He says, doing so will hurt her feelings and cause a heartache. She may begin to feel useless and might even doubt her husband, which will cause the worst of unwanted problems. La ilaha illallah. Imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching this to us through Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The next point, the husband must seek the treatment of his wife and children when they are sick. It is incorrect to intentionally disregard the sickness and turn a blind eye on the situation. One must, according to his means, ensure the good health of his family. Sometimes what the men do, oh, she's sick, all right, we'll see, we'll go to the doctor tomorrow. Still after a week, if you're still feeling like this, then we'll see if we can go to the doctor. That is not correct. That is un-Islamic. She is sick, the children are sick, deal with it as soon as you can. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked you to do. The next point, it is a major sin to unnecessarily suspect one's wife of infidelity or betrayal. Happy marriages are based on trusting one another, believing hearsay, anonymous callers or letters, and those who do not want to be named whilst making such grave accusations is totally rejected in Islam. This can only result in the unfortunate breakup of the home. Jealous elements can even be using this as a means of destruction. Allah Almighty forbid. The next point, it is incorrect to give preference to one's friends over his own wife and children, spending long hours on a daily basis with the former whilst forgetting the latter. Islam requires a husband to understand his duties and maintain a balanced approach in this regard. This does not mean that one's friends should be ignored totally, but one must consider the plight of his wife and children. Spending quality time with one's family will only enhance the marriage, whereas not spending time with them will most definitely strain not only the marriage, but the father-child relationship too. What an important point. The last point that is mentioned here, he says, it is incorrect to abstain from discussion and communication with one's wife and children for no reason. At times, and the author says, the author says, at times after a long day at work, the husband comes home and gets so engrossed in reading the paper, listening to the news, sitting with a friend, or spending hours on the internet, that he does not realize that his family, who is in need of talking to him, is being totally ignored. If this persists, there will be a communication breakdown which will result in misunderstandings that can have a disastrous effect on the marriage. Subhanallah. Look at this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught this to us in this beautiful religion of Islam. And the author ends by saying, besides these rights and guidelines, there are still many more that have been mentioned in some specialized books. we have only mentioned the most relevant and important points here. Refer to the detailed books for more. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us happy in our homes. The points that have been mentioned today definitely are very important points. I'm sure we may have heard some of them in the past, some of them we may not have heard, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to have gained something from what was said today. Inshallah, we will look at what the wife has to actually do regarding her husband and towards her husband and her own children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us success. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.